No, this originally started out as a series for Disney Plus, but after Wish underperformed, Disney decided to rework the film. Initially, this worried me. I worried the plot would feel episodic, similar to the Clone Wars movie, which was just 4 episodes of the show edited together. With Clone Wars, you could tell where the episodes ended and the next one began. However, that is not the case with this film. The plot flowed pretty naturally. I really enjoyed how this film expands the mythology. Moana and her little sister were a great dynamic, reminding me of Nani and Lilo from Lilo and Stitch. And we finally, after 11 years, have a great Disney villain. And on top of that, a great villain song. I don't consider Shiny from the first Moana to be a villain song per se, because Tamatoa wasn't an overarching threat. He was in the movie for about 5 minutes, and that was it. The villain in this movie is an overarching threat, and she has a great villain song that feels like a mixture of I Won't Say I'm in Love from Hercules and Yzma's deleted villain song from Emperor's New Groove, which back then was called Kingdom of the Sun. And she's a pretty scary, threatening villain. She reminded me of the villain from DreamWorks' Sinbad. Now, Lin-Manuel Miranda didn't do the songs this time around, and you can kind of tell. None of the songs are awful, but they're not as good as the songs from the first film. They're still catchy though, but they feel like a cheaper version of Lynn's work. Now, there were to me where I thought, this is such a bad song, can we please move on? They were pretty good. And I think making this a movie instead of a show was a great decision, because the scale of this movie is huge. There's a scene with a whale that filled up the whole screen. There's monsters in this movie that feel very cinematic, and the scale is not something that would be as effective if this were just a streaming series. Now, on a plot level, I didn't think it was as strong as the first film. Moana didn't really have that interesting of a character arc. The side characters in this film are all pretty forgettable, and the humor in this movie isn't as clever. The jokes in this movie are either repeats of jokes from the first film, or they simply don't make sense. Like, the joke about the chicken being a boat stack is repeated a few times, the joke about how Moana isn't a princess is repeated, the chicken screaming is repeated, there's a joke about butt dialing from Maui, which he says will make sense in about 2,000 years, which doesn't make sense. Like, does Maui have omniscience? Like, the joke about tweeting from the last movie was mildly amusing, but yeah, it doesn't make sense to have modern references in this movie. So while it isn't as strong as the first film, it's still pretty solid. It is worth returning to the world of Moana. I highly recommend seeing it. For me, it gets a B, an 8 out of 10, and a 4 out of 5 stars.